Hi, this is Tamara from Fashion Roundtable. I'm here with Dr. Lisa Cameron, who is the chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Textiles and Fashion. Thank you for coming on, Lisa. We've worked very closely with you over the last 3 years, looking at different issues which are relevant to the fashion industry. So as well as looking at trade relations with countries such as China and working relationships with the Commonwealth, we've also really worked on our report on representation and inclusion, which Royce and Davina are working on at the moment. And you sat in on every single and chaired every single evidence session. What made you take up this APPG and why is it so important to you, do you think?
I think it's really, really crucial in so many levels, Tamara, and it's wonderful that you've provided such an excellent secretariat for the group. We couldn't really be doing it without you. But obviously, sustainability and climate change are at the core of the work that we're doing. But alongside that, wanting to make sure that the UK shows great leadership in terms of manufacturing, in terms of quality, and in terms of working conditions, and make sure that UK labelling and Make It British are extremely reputable throughout the world and supporting young design as well. So there's so many different elements of it that we've been working on, but to make sure that fashion and textiles have a voice at Westminster, it's a clear voice, and that we're able to assist the industry to show leadership and enhance the reputation globally is fundamental, I think.
Do you think that other sectors have more of a voice in Westminster than maybe the fashion industry's had until you took up that role?
Well, I mean, I know that there's great interest right across the parties in fashion and textile industry. You know, we have good support for our all-party parliamentary group, but until it started up, it was very rarely discussed, even in relation to Brexit, where there were going to be, such immense impacts on industry in terms of visa requirements, in terms of potential trade deals, just in terms of the industry's reach and the UK having that leadership role that we were so keen to see. So, often every week in Parliament, we heard about the impact on the car industry, or we heard about the impact on other industries with regards to Brexit, but we just never heard about the impact on fashion and textile industry. And it's a massive employer and a massive contributor to the economy. And so that had to be redressed. And I think with your support through the Secretariat, we've been able to make sure that there is a much louder voice and a more sustained voice in Parliament over the past few years.
I mean, we just did the quarterly review, what's called the monitoring report. And literally, Lisa, you've sent in so many written and oral questions to support different issues on policy. And without that kind of engagement, I mean, I'm already worried for the sector on lots of different levels, from Brexit to workers' rights and other areas of the industry such have been highlighted, such as the Leicester issue, which obviously you've supported with the British Retail Consortium, with the Fit to Trade as well initiative that you led. I mean, do you think that there will be more understanding based on all these written and oral questions? I know it takes time with policy, but do you think it's starting a culture change which can support policy?
Absolutely. And I think it's just been so important that it's entirely cross-party, that, everyone has the same concerns that are being shared, and we're working collectively across party to make sure that the questions are going in and that they're continually raised at that highest level of government. So it therefore becomes more of a priority the more that the voice of the industry is heard in the chamber of the House of Commons. And I think that that's just been so crucial in taking things forward. We have a meeting coming up with the Secretary of State regarding the Fit to Trade licence. So I'm sure that came from an oral question, and that's where it was agreed to have the meetings. It can only be helpful to continue to put in both oral and written questions make sure that there is industry representation in Parliament for the issues that we really need to address.
Thank you. And do you see that for instance, I got some information which I've shared before, but the Jaguar Land Rover spent 800 million on lobbying the government, and obviously none of us have those kinds of budgets. But the way that we use as more collaboratively and obviously less financially viable for us. But do you see that our way? I mean, I've noticed a really strong engagement from our parliamentary members in terms of looking at the questions that they're raising and the issues that they're raising. Do you think that this will lead to greater understanding from government? Because the reason I say that, Lisa, is the government's green 10-point action plan doesn't have the fashion industry in it at all. So I know that COP26 is going to be happening in Scotland, where you're from, but interestingly, their own green plan doesn't have that one of the largest employers and actual causes of the climate emergency in its thinking, and that does worry me, because although we're getting a louder voice within our cross-party members, and I agree with you, it's fantastic to have that cross-party collaboration, because I think that is a more progressive way of doing politics anyway, working with people rather than always being so binary. But I wonder whether what do we need to see in government to see these changes actually going to the top level, to the decision makers at number 10?
Yeah, I mean, most things just take such perseverance, and I think what we're trying to do is open mindsets. So in terms of climate change, there probably have been, issues government have worked on for a long time, and fashion hasn't been one of them in that context, more than likely. So what we're trying to do is to change mindsets at the highest level, and I think that takes real perseverance. But you're pointing that out. We're able to point out that the industry is not mentioned in the 10-point plan, and we'll do that. And then, hopefully we have to keep working on it to make sure that the penny drops, because it's an industry that has a massive impact on climate objectives. So unless it's included, then we're going to be really missing quite a significant proportion of the work that needs to be done to achieve the aims for COP26 and beyond. So it has to be there, but I think we have that focus through the all-party parliamentary group to make sure that it is there, and where it's been missed out, that we point that out and very firmly say that has to be addressed. And working together with yourself and across party, I think, is the best way to achieve that. And also it's consumers who want to see that too. Consumers are becoming much more informed and want to be much more informed about the clothing that they're buying and the impact of that on the environment and on the workforce. And they want to know who made my clothes. That these basic questions will come from consumers. And government and MPs have to be responsive to our constituents and to the public. That's, our fundamental job. So I think coming on both parallels from the public and also from the all-party parliamentary group in that cross-party way means that fashion and textile will have a firm place in relation to the policy work going ahead.
Thank you. And the last question really is around the work that we'll cover later in the week with Davina and Royce over this 7-day takeover. But I was really heartened to see the cross-party support that we had when we had our evidence sessions for the representation and inclusion policy paper. People like Baroness Uden and Michael Doherty-Hughes. And yourself and others, they really were emotively engaged with the evidence sessions and the work. And I really hope that allows for a culture change. To allow in those conversations felt very powerful. And I was really heartened as well by their honesty, I felt, in those sessions. I wonder what your thoughts about that paper are and what we're doing with that.
Well, I think it's just so worthwhile because what we're doing is obviously we're trying to make sure that the policies are in place that we need to have moving forward. But we also want to make recommendations not just to government, but also to industry in terms of inclusion and representation within the industry. And we heard within those sessions that so many parts of society feel excluded from this particular industry, don't feel that they're represented at all. People with disabilities is one example of that, where we heard how difficult it is for companies working to include either models who have disabilities or those who are working in other aspects of the industry, to even have a voice that's heard. So I think that's going to be really, really important and valuable, because the industry has to cover everyone in society, really, and that's doesn't just make economic sense, but it makes absolute moral sense. And I think, that's going to be an important inquiry paper that's, will be published next year, and will certainly continue to take those issues forward with industry.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on, Lisa. If you've got any questions, please email admin@fashionroundtable.co.uk. And thank you, Lisa, for all your support and ongoing work on our behalf. Thank you very much.